Hi, mystery writers. It's Zerald here, and this is Mystery Monday, but I'm changing the name to a Mystery Fix because I think it better reflects what we talk about here, writing mysteries. So from now on, we'll just keep going, but the title will be changed. Okay, and today I wanted to talk about creating your sidekick for your mystery sleuth. I know it was a question that a viewer asked a while back, and so I thought I would elaborate on the sidekick because if you create one, they are a very important character in your mystery. Um, and the sidekick is a traditional literary archetype that will enhance your mystery. The sidekick can be a working partner or a friend, and their role in the story will vary depending on how you choose to amplify your sleuth by using the sidekick. And the ways your sidekick can mirror your sleuth depends on that sidekick story role. So, some sleuths work alone, and you can absolutely choose to do that in your mystery. It isn't required to have a sidekick in order to write a mystery. But the main function of your sidekick is to illustrate your sleuth's weaknesses and strengthen his personal traits. And when you expand your protagonist with interaction with the sidekick, your readers engage with your story. And that's what it's all about, is getting readers to engage in your story. If your readers aren't engaged, it's back to the drawing board. So the sidekick has a special role in your story, and that is to accompany the hero on his quest. That's for any novel. And in the mystery, the sidekick helps your sleuth track down the murderer. That's their job. And then I wanted to clarify something. The sidekick is not necessarily a mentor. The role of the mentor is to appear periodically and provide sage advice to your story's protagonist. And your sidekick doesn't have to do this. They may give advice, but their main role is to be with the sleuth and help them on their discovery path. So your sidekick wouldn't be a sidekick if he wasn't there through thick and thin. So I just wanted to make that distinction between a mentor and a sidekick. The sidekick is there no matter what. Whatever advice they might be giving in their role as a sidekick. Their main job is to be there and to help with the discovery process. And your sleuth and the sidekick have a connection that sets them on the trail of discovery to find the murderer. And that connection is very important. Even if the sidekick is assigned to your sleuth, and this often happens in police crime novels, they are both set on solving the mystery. So how does a sidekick mirror your detective? That's one of their major roles, is to point out those strengths and weaknesses in your sleuth. And the best way to do this is that they have something in common. So even if that sidekick is assigned to your sleuth, and your sleuth may be kind of resentful at the beginning, they have that something in common, and that is to solve the murder. So in general, with your sleuth, that commonality may be a knowledge of police procedure, or it could be a common interest or a common desire to solve the mystery. So in the film The Crimson Rivers, thoughtful Pierre Niemans, who was Jean Reno in the film, works with action-oriented Max Krikarian, Vincent Cassell, and they're often at odds on procedure. They both have the goal of finding the killer. And then from a totally different perspective, in John D. MacDonald's Travis McGee novels, Travis McGee's sidekick is Mayer, the economist, and his main role is to help readers understand the depths of Travis McGee's thinking. So they have long conversations about politics and economics and the current state of affairs in the world, and that gives readers a greater understanding of Travis McGee, because he is kind of a rough, tough, get in there and fight guy, and his sidekick Meyer really helps readers understand that Travis McGee is more than just a big tough guy. So whatever you decide to do when you create your sidekick, their job is to hold up a mirror to the sleuth by highlighting their strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes a sidekick compensates for the weaknesses by having an opposite personality or style of response. So some sidekicks may pick up the slack and others may not. And the sidekick can highlight the strengths by pointing them out when your sleuth meets an obstacle. So, for example, if your sleuth is really discouraged because they aren't getting anywhere, the sidekick may kind of, give them a gentle nudge to say, hey, but X, So the sidekick's role is to help your readers understand your sleuth and give them a deeper knowledge of your sleuth. So let's talk about some points to consider as you create your sleuth sidekick. First of all, as a writer, you have a lot of leeway as you create your sleuth sidekick. Your sidekick can be male or female, younger or older or the same age, new to the game or an old hand. It's really your choice how you want to create that persona, that character that travels along with your sleuth. So a couple of points. The very first thing is to make your sidekick a distinct and interesting character. So give them a personality and one that interacts with your sleuth, and build their skill set in the same way you create your sleuth skill set. So you're going to do a lot of work in your character Bible. Before you start writing the story, you really want to have a great handle on your sidekick's character, who they are, how they respond to things, how they think, how they act. Are they physical? Are they just thinkers, or vice versa? So you want to give them a rich background. And this is really important if you plan on creating a series, because your sidekick is going to appear again and again. And just like your sleuth, your protagonist, you need a deep, rich background, and it's up to you to create that background. Give your sidekick their personality and their strengths and weaknesses that reflect the strengths and weaknesses of your sleuth. I know I'm not being really super detailed here, and the reason is you really do have a lot of leeway. I want to stress that your sidekick, their main job is to be there alongside the sleuth throughout the story. So you can just do whatever you want, create the person you want it to be. Anything from a grandmother to a young kid, and anything in between. And their story role um, is to reflect your sleuth. That's really all you need. And so the more you create a character that's interesting and vital and gets readers' attention, and uh, the more that sidekick is going to do the job in the story that you write. A couple of things to keep in mind. You want to keep the sidekick from taking over the story. They may be as strong as being a co-protagonist, but you don't want to, unlike your protagonist, you don't want to have a lot of the sidekick's story. So if they have a family, you're going to keep that family in the background, whereas you may illuminate family members and friends of the protagonist. So it's a thin line, but sidekicks are fun to create. So you may be tempted to let the sidekick take over, but you have to resist the temptation because your sleuth is the protagonist. So create sidekicks that complement your detective's traits. I think this is one of the easiest ways to think about creating your sidekick is that if they have sort of complementary traits that are the opposite of the sleuth, they can complement, and the two of them together make up the team along with their skills that discover the murderer, and you can play around with those strengths. And the other thing is to keep your sleuth and your sidekick connected. And this is especially important if you create an antagonistic sidekick. Make sure that the connection is strong, even if it's antagonistic. Make sure that the connection is strong between the two characters. So if you create an antagonistic sidekick just to be antagonistic because you think it would be more interesting, rethink your sidekick and create a new and more sympathetic and supportive sidekick. Somehow, these two people in your story need to connect because they take that discovery journey together, not separately. And so your sleuth is the lead. The sidekick is the companion, the sidekick. I think the sidekick's role is to make your sleuth protagonist more likable to your readers. So as the sidekick complements and shows your sleuth characteristics, your readers become more engaged with your sleuth and more sympathetic and kind of cheer that sleuth on to be able to find the murderer. So your sidekick supports your sleuth physically and emotionally as they work to solve the whodunit puzzle. That's their job in a mystery. They're solving the puzzle. Okay, that's kind of what I had to say today. And be sure if you have any questions and are watching later, you can always get in touch with me and ask your questions. I'm happy to answer questions. And first of all, I'm really excited to be here. I know there's been a little break in Mystery Monday, and I was having some physical pain, and then last week I had some surgery. So this session is kind of my first re-entry into the world after surgery, and I'm still in recovery, so I'm going to keep it short. Also wanted to let everyone know that the Vellum Scribe is out, and I'd love to have you read and make comments. And this is part of the Argolicus mystery series. And for those of you who have read any Argolicus mysteries, you know that his sidekick is his tutor from childhood who has become his lifelong companion, and that is Nicholas. And just to give you a hint of the Vellum Scribe, I was really jazzed. I got a new I got a new review on Amazon for this book, so I thought I'd read it to you because it was kind of fun. Because these are historical mysteries, and this person obviously doesn't read a lot of historical mysteries. But here's what they had to say. This author has set himself a challenge by writing a mystery set in a time when there were no telephones, no computers, no scientific method as we understand it, and no mysterious villains with international organizations, and it works. The pace is slower, of course, but it lets the characters develop more easily and is more interesting and in more interesting ways. I'm sorry. Instead of a shout out of, oh boy, I'm sorry. Instead of a shootout, it is a puzzle. And instead of high-powered weapons, it's intellect. For a lovely change of pace, this is a place to look. The second book I've read by the author, and both were wonderful. So I hope that gives you a little taste of the Vellum Scribe, and I'd be thrilled if you read it and left a review or at least give me some feedback. All right, that's all for today. We're with Mystery Monday, now changed to Mystery Fix. And I want to thank you for being here and enjoy your writing time.